Hi everyone, thanks for being with me. Today's question is Peter Dutton a racist? Well, I'm not in a position to say so, but nevertheless, I am in a position to at least talk about it. So the question remains, is Dutton racist? Well, one has to look at his history just to wonder about what his definition of a racist would be. This is a man that walked out of the apology to the stolen generation. Now, I don't know why Dutton chose to do that. Perhaps he didn't want to accept that Indigenous people needed to be recognised or apologised to. Who knows? Is that racist? The fact that he did have some slurs in relation to black Africans who were in Australia, who were apparently running havoc, and of course, therefore, that they perhaps should not be allowed into this country. Is that racist? Because it was overheated and it wasn't necessarily the truth either. So is that racist? The fact that he's now decided that anybody, women and children who are leaving Gaza should not be entered into Australia because potentially they might be terrorists. Well, is that racist? Now, I'm not in a position to say this because actually he's taking some action against Zali Steggall for making such statements on Sky News, I believe, over the last day or so. But I'm going to talk about the issues as they stand, and I want you to decide for yourself. But I was most interested in an introduction to the ABC's Insiders program today, which I will now play for you because I think this kind of sums it up or encapsulates it quite appropriately. So I'll play this now.
As strikes fall on Gaza, Peter Dutton is raising the drawbridge.
I don't think people should be coming in from that war zone at all at the moment.
Peter Dutton says they pose a national security threat.
That framing is racist. It really is shameful and beneath our alternative Prime Minister.
You are talking about Hamas, a listed terrorist organisation.
All reasonable people know that not all people in Gaza are members of Hamas.
If they've expressed any support or sympathy for Hamas, is that a problem?
If it's just rhetorical support and they don't have an ideology or support for a violent extremism ideology, then that's not a problem.
Does supporting a listed terrorist organisation like Hamas pass Australia's character test?
If the leader of the opposition doesn't have confidence in that system, he should say so.
Supporting a terrorist organisation is a very clear breach of the Migration Act. But that's not a criticism of Mike Burgess. He was simply describing the status quo under this government.
Are you a heartless racist? Do you have any humanity?
It's a nonsense, and it's emotional language.
The number of people killed in Gaza since Hamas launched the attacks on Israel in October last year has now passed 40,000.
Peter Dutton has laid out a pathway.
Maybe say something about the children that have been slaughtered.
And this politicisation to demonise him because they think this is a way to help their polling, to destroy his reputation, is abhorrent.
Peter Dutton has defended his calls to refuse visas to Palestinian refugees.
And he's claiming the Prime Minister's misled the Parliament.
This is an egregious breach of what is in our country's best interests.
These are families that you are seeking to paint that somehow they are all terrorists. Stop being racist.
The leader of the opposition.
People like myself came here and, you know, we are not terrorists.
The scarf stayed on, but the mask came off. He sows fear and he sows division.
This is a national security issue and it deserves to be debated.
So, what do you think? I suggest that you be very careful about what you say because he is taking actions against people who would infer that he is racist. I would tend to argue that there are certain behaviours which are unhelpful in terms of this debate around immigration. Now, why is it that we would assume that women and children in particular who have managed to get out of Gaza into a neighbouring country, and why is it that that particular country, firstly, they've been assessed as being able to leave Gaza by the Israelis, so the Israeli government clearly don't see them as a threat. I mean, not everybody can just walk through the gates leading out of Gaza. They have to be, they have to have passports, and they have to be cleared by the Israeli government. So given that they've done all of that and they've moved on into neighbouring countries, why is it then that that isn't enough? And of course, once they start to apply for a visa into Australia, then ASIO does another check. Now, to say that anybody who comes from a war-torn country, whether that be Afghanistan or Syria or wherever, are automatically excluded simply because they come from that country, and that the belief is that therefore they are likely to support the terrorists in that country is obscene, in my view. But in a sense, that's what Dutton and the Liberal Party are saying, because it is in their best interest, apparently, to sow discontent, to sow discord, to ensure that the Australian public doubt anybody who either was not born in this country or who has been an Australian citizen for some time. So we must be wary of what it is that Peter Dutton is attempting to do here, because he's attempting to divide our nation further, because this is what the Liberal Party believe, and what Dutton believes is going to win him enough votes to be able to become Prime Minister after the next election. Now, I'm just going to also play some news items for you so that we can discuss this matter further in terms of what the news is saying. Now, Peter Dutton's call to ban refugees from Gaza has proved too much for some MPs, particularly Zali Steggall. If it perhaps should not have been a complete surprise on Friday when opposition leader Peter Dutton linked Australian housing crisis to his assertion that the Albanese government was deliberately or possibly haphazardly allowing Hamas sympathisers into the country from the horror of the Gaza Strip. It has, after all, made the link between migration and housing before saying after the budget in May that the coalition would cut migration, which had surged after the pandemic, supercharged, ironically, by lax Morrison government policies on international students' work rights, to ease the housing crisis, as well as pressure on schools, childcare and congestion on the roads. These have been some of the assertions that he's made. After a week of various claims about the circumstances in which refugees from Gaza have come to Australia, Dutton said on Friday that the Albanese government had brought people in without doing interviews from a war zone that's controlled by Hamas, a listed terrorist organisation in our country. We're a generous country. This is a quote from him. We're a generous country. Well, we're generous, true. But when it comes to your version of generosity, clearly it could be questioned. And we're a great country because of migration. But you need to manage our migration program well, he told the Nine Network. It's not just this. The country under huge pressure at the moment in the housing industry because the Prime Minister brought 1 million people in over 2 years and we've only built 250,000 homes. Well, that was because of the pandemic. The opposition leader's capacity to conflate a range of hot-button issues, half-truths and misleading assertions is only matched by the federal government's, and this is true, and not letting the federal government off the hook around any of this, over flat-footed capacity to respond and the way it seemed to seed the field of him this week with nothing much to say about anything else. But his suggestion that there should be a blanket ban on any refugees from Gaza was too much for a lot of MPs, particularly from the crossbench. Yea, go the crossbenchers. And I think it's important to understand that there are many people in the community, particularly migrants themselves, who are offended by what Dutton has now said in relation to Gaza, because this is his policy, this is his belief system around anybody that seems to be of a different colour or come from a different country. which, it's kind of bizarre given that most of our ancestors, unless we're Indigenous, come from a different country. And the other thing too is he said that he's apologised to the Muslim community about some comments that he made some time ago. But interestingly enough, that particular community hasn't heard anything from him. For members of Australian Lebanese Muslim community, opposition leader Peter Dutton's call to stop Palestinians fleeing Gaza from entering the country has brought back painful memories of 2016. Dutton, the then Minister for Immigration and Border Protection, singled out Lebanese Muslims in Parliament after saying the Fraser government had made mistakes in immigration policy in the 1970s. The advice that I have is that out of at least 33 people who have been charged with terrorist-related offences in this country, 22 are from second and third generation Lebanese Muslim backgrounds, he said in November 2016. And these are the sort of stupid, bizarre, crazy comments that the man makes. The comments were widely condemned at the time, and last year, in an episode of the ABC Kitchen Cabinet, journalist Annabelle Crabb put to Dutton that they were racist. So he's already been confronted by their comments that I shouldn't have made. He replied, "I have apologised for that." But 5 leaders of Australia's Lebanese Muslim community now say they have no recollection of Dutton ever making that apology. The opposition leader's office did not respond to multiple inquiries from this masthead about when, how and whom he had said that he was sorry. So the issue becomes that Dutton has at no point taken a backward step in relation to these issues around immigration. In fact, what he's done is just poured more and more fuel on the flame. He has decided that this is an issue which most Australians will get upset about and that which will develop into an appropriate attack on the current government. But I think he's wrong. I think that this will actually backfire, but we have yet to see what happens in this regard. So what has he done? He's chosen to do a Reynolds and a Ben Robert Smith approach, which is about suing people that are challenging him. And I always find this quite interesting because when people get challenged and they decide at the end of the day that they're going to sue them, then often what they're really saying is, I'm trying to hide from the fact that I am what people are calling me. So if I want to confront the fact that I'm a racist, prove to people that I'm not a racist, and in doing so, often proves the very thing that they're trying to avoid, and it presents that issue back into the public eye, which is wrong and which is dangerous. But nevertheless, people like Dutton, people that are narcissists, think that this is the only way that they can combat this problem, and this is how they go about it. So, in this particular article in the Sydney Morning Herald, sorry, I lied. It's on news.com.au. Dutton reportedly seeks legal advice after Steggall's racist dig over Gaza visas. Peter Dutton is seeking legal advice after being called a racist during a heated, have I got that bit? Yeah, over a heated House debate on visas for Palestinians fleeing Gaza, Sky News reports on Sunday. The opposition leader earlier this week moved a motion to suspend standing orders and debate Gaza visas, giving him the floor to accuse the government of dropping the ball on national security and make the case for a blanket ban on people fleeing the war zone, the war-torn Palestinian territory. But things boiled over when independent MP Zali, she's fabulous, absolutely fabulous, and she needs the support that all of us can offer her, and particularly all the independents within the House of Representatives. But she told the House about a Palestinian refugee in her electorate who came to Australia over a visa approved by the Morrison government under the same system. So the same system, run by the same people, same rules. Mr. Dutton interjected several times, prompting Ms. Steggall to snap. And this is what the Liberal Party... This is a strong indication, actually, as to who the Liberal Party are, because they do tend to want to attack anybody who disagrees with them. This is their stick. This is what they do. They want to be able to argue that they are the ones that have the moral high ground. And the reality is Well, clearly they don't. You could hear me. We heard you in silence. She told the Liberal leader after multiple interjections from Mr. Dutton. You can hear me in silence. Stop being racist. Ms. Stegel withdrew her comment, which was protected under parliamentary privilege, but repeated her claim several hours outside the House. To raise an inference that we are to fear anyone coming here seeking refuge from Gaza in Palestine, that there's an inference that they are all terrorists or they are all linked with Hamas. Now that is a racist inference. If Dutton's going to advocate for a policy that comes under the definition of racism, then that inference is there, she says. Ms. Stegel also repeated the claim to Sky, telling the broadcaster Mr. Dutton is a racist by association with his policy. Now, he has responded, of course, by saying he's not going to stand up and admit that he is a racist. I mean, heaven forbid. I'm not a racist. I'm not going to be standing here as a punching bag for people like Zali Stegel, he said. I actually think people like Zali Stegel. I don't know what he means by that, but I'm sure we can take some inference from that. I actually think, maybe because she's a woman telling you what you should be doing, I actually think, ironically, that them calling out people unnecessarily and unrealistically and unjustly as racist, they're actually fueling tensions. Mr. Dutton has responded to Newswire's request for comments on this report legal plans. The Lebanese Muslim Association has also taken Mr. Dutton to task over his visa ban proposal. So there we have it. Now, I believe that Dutton is behaving in a way which fuels beliefs, which fuels the tension that's already in our community around race. Now, I'm not going to sit here and call him a racist because, you know, he might sue little old me with my 1,100 subscribers, but his behaviour would indicate that there is a desire to see others as different to him and to prohibit those people who are deserving, but to prohibit those people from having an opportunity of living in our country simply because of where they come from and the colour of their skin and their ethnicity and their religious beliefs. So these are the things that I think we need to be clear and mindful about, and that we need to ensure that we are arguing for a fairer society, not the sort of society that's being presented by one Peter Dutton, the Liberals and the Nationals. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Please subscribe to my channel for further notifications. There'll be more to say about this particular issue in the future, I can assure you. In the meantime, take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.